Hello and welcome to the Central Now. I am Lekon Onabanjo. The headlines at this hour. Court restrains EFCC from arresting, detaining, prosecuting former Kogi governor. Over 100,000 displaced after Burundi floods as government appeals for aid. United Nations Special Envoy to Libya Abdullahi resigns. Details to come your way shortly. We begin the news at this hour where a high court sitting in Lokoja, Kogi State capital, has restrained the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission from infringing on the fundamental human rights of the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello. In a 2-hour judgment delivered on Wednesday at the High Court 4 and presided over by Honorable Justice I.A. Jamil, the court restrained the EFCC from arresting, detaining and prosecuting the applicant except as authorized by the courts. This is a definite order following the earlier interim injunction given. Judgments followed the suit brought before the court by Yahaya Bello, the applicant seeking to enforce his fundamental rights against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The court equally restrained the respondents from continuing to prosecute the applicants. Meanwhile, operatives of Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have reportedly barricaded the house of the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, in Wuse, Abuja. It was reported that the EFCC siege is coming days after Bello held a meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House. Although there was no immediate information available to the reason the anti-graft agency stormed the former governor's residence, it may be connected with the alleged 84 billion naira fraud case against him, which the EFCC is prosecuting. The Anti-Graft Commission, in an amended charge, accused Bello of diverting 80 billion naira of state funds in September 2015, 4 months before he assumed office. Now, the incumbent governor of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, has visited the embattled former governor of the state, Yahaya Bello, amidst a heavy security crackdown on the latter's Abuja home. Ododo arrived at Bello's residence at about 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, alongside several security operatives and youth supporters protesting against the siege to the former governor's home. Still in Kogi State, we tell you that activists and members of the civil society organization have united under the banner of the Coalition for Democracy and Justice to voice their concerns regarding what they perceive as a dangerous trend within the EFCC. The activists are particularly troubled by what they see as a disregard for a valid court order restraining the EFCC from taking action against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, despite a court order protecting him from arrest, prosecution and harassment. They argue that such actions not only undermine the authority of the judiciary, but also erode the trust of the citizens in the country's legal system. They urged President Bola Tinubu to intervene and ensure that the EFCC operates within the confines of the law, safeguarding the principles of justice and fairness. And away from that, the Kano State High Court has adjourned the arraignment of the former state governor, Abdullahi Gand and 7 others to April 29 to allow the state government serve the respondents the notice of the charge. The Kano state government is accusing Ganduje of misappropriating public funds during his time as governor, including the purported acceptance of about $413,000 and 1.38 billion naira in bribes. At the arraignment, the counsel to the 6th respondents, Lamash Properties Limited, which is one of the respondents, argued that the case was a criminal matter and hence the prosecuting counsel should serve the notice of charge to all the respondents. The trial judge, Usman Naba, having listened to the counsel's arguments, adjourned the case and directed that they should put all the parties on notice. Earlier, our correspondent, Marvelous Obomanu, was on the news with updates on this.
Ganduje and 7 other parties, were supposed to be arraigned in court today. So at the court, the 6th respondent out of the 8 respondents is the only respondent that made an appearance in court today. So he raised an objection that he doesn't want to continue the proceeding today, that the prosecution, which is the government, has not, filed the notice of the charges on them, on all the respondents, and therefore he urged the trial judge to discontinue the hearing of the case today. So after the trial judge, Usman Naba, looked at, their arguments, he now adjourned the case to 29th of April for continuation of hearing.
Now, in the war against money laundering, terrorism financing, and other financial crimes in Nigeria, anti-corruption experts say adequate information relating to beneficial ownership of assets is crucial to ending public service corruption. This was during a training session organized by Nigeria's Financial Intelligence Unit in partnership with the Rule of Law Coalition, aimed at building the capacity of law enforcement personnel in using available information to tackle graft. Joshua Imarai tells us more.
According to the latest Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Nigeria scored 145 out of 180 countries ranked. While many say this reflects the sorry state of corruption in the country, they agree there is a need to tackle this monster headlong. Some anti-corruption experts converge on Abuja, Nigeria's capital, to train personnel from anti-graft agencies on how to utilize beneficial ownership information to combat corruption.
We cannot have a comprehensive BO. For real, it's not going to happen. Already I know that FRS have one, that they already have, NITI has. So this BO that we're talking about, yes, the company registry is hosting that very large BO data that we're looking out for, but there will be pockets of them here and there. So what I want to put on the table before you go into the serious business you are here for is to say that start thinking of how these data will talk to each other.
They say the information now collated in the registry will help unveil beneficiaries of wild-scale corruption.
It may not necessarily be a magic wand that causes all the anti-corruption issues in the country to go away, but it is a very critical step, because if we are able to lift the veil, if we are able to, go beyond the facade of who has committed the crime, the organization that seems to be behind the crime, to get to the actual personnel, the actual person who benefits from the crime, then we are a step closer to nipping those crimes in the bud.
While experts have lauded the effectiveness of utilizing beneficial ownership information, law enforcement agencies from Nigeria say its effectiveness and efficacy in prosecuting perpetrators of various financial crimes have been tremendous.
The Corporate Affairs Commission, which is the primary agency that's responsible for the registration of all legal entities of Nigeria, has granted us an online access. So it means we can stay in our office and have access to their data, which has been a game changer for us. It has helped us a lot in identifying the people that are behind some of this trafficking.
As Nigeria continues its efforts in the fight against corruption, this collaboration and training initiative underscores a visible commitment to transparency and accountability. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
A bit of politics now. Protesters on Wednesday flooded the premises of the national headquarters of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja, throwing their support for the acting national chairman of the party, Umar Damagun, and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. The protesters, who displayed placards with various inscriptions, pledged support for Wike and Damagun, alleging that some people within the party are trying to cause disaffection among the leadership. The protests occurred barely an hour before the meeting of the PDP Governors Forum and 24 hours before the PDP National Executive Committee meeting of the party, where issues regarding the leadership of the PDP are expected to be discussed. Now, election stakeholders in Nigeria have called for far-reaching reforms in the nation's electoral process in order to improve, and build the confidence of citizens. They called for the amendment of the Electoral Act, expressing worry that it has been unable to compel candidates from political parties to play by the rules. Edon Joseph reports.
A national multi-stakeholders forum convened to provide stakeholders with the opportunity to recommend areas needed for electoral reforms. Inspired by controversies that trailed the 2023 general and off-cycle elections especially surrounding the use of technology in voting and transmission of election results. They said there are visible gaps in the nation's Electoral Act.
The quote-unquote glitch that Nigerians heard of on election day remains a major drawback as far as the 2023 election is concerned.
When we have logistic problem before the ballot papers, the necessary tools to get to the electorate members, they feel superbly tired that where this thing coming from, and it's actually giving them a doubt of what is going on.
Some school of thought believe that the election happens to be the best so far, and some believe that no, we can do better. But whether we can do better, whether that has been the best, there is one underlying factor that everybody agrees on. There is a need to have a reform.
Stakeholders here suggest areas of the Act which they think need amendments to improve Nigeria's electoral process.
We cannot be using bimodal system of accepting the result. It is not possible. We can't use the bimodal system of taking the result manually and taking the result by electronic transmission. It's either we go by manual that we know it's going to favor us, or we go with the transmission itself. So the law should be straightforward in that aspect.
There has to be a clear definition of how our laws are interpreted. It's still not very clear how our laws are interpreted. For example, the interpretation of 25% of votes, at least in 2 of the 36 states.
The consensus amongst stakeholders here is that there are gaps in the nation's Electoral Act that need amendments. They say that they hope recommendations drawn from the meeting will be adopted by relevant stakeholders to further improve the nation's electoral process. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonk Joseph.
At this point, we now go on a short break on News Central Now. When we return, we'll bring you more stories. Many thanks for staying with us. While conversations concerning the construction of the Lagos to Calabar Coastal Road are still ongoing, workers of the popular landmark beach resort woke up today to see sand filling work has started on the premises. Landmark is one of the many facilities which will be affected by the coastal road should it continue as planned. Earlier, our correspondent Bernard Akede joined us live from the beach resort.
Presently live at Landmark Beach Resort at the moment. For those who know the beach, you know that it's just beyond a beach. It's grown in the past few years beyond just the beach resort. Behind me is the entire part of the beach, and these people here are not exactly beach goers. These are people who work in the various vendor stands on the beach. Now, to my left here, I'll swing with the camera so you can see. There's a banner here saying hashtag Save Landmark Beach, Save Our Beach. And of course, this is part of the ongoing story about the coastal road that's been constructed from Lagos to Calabar. It's been in the news for quite a while. Now, this road apparently is going to cut through Landmark Beach. We understand that conversations are still ongoing concerning what should be done, whether or not the road will cut or should cut through the beach, whether or not it was meant to go through the beach at the very beginning. Right? But now the workers here say that just overnight they found out that heavy equipment, as you can see from far away, and we'll zoom in there in a bit, heavy equipment arrived in the early hours of this morning at about 3 a.m. or even earlier, and began to sand fill the front part of the beach. As you can see, all that part, the water at the front there, is all gone already.
Away from that, a group of Nigerian corporate farmers from the diaspora known as Aero Farmers has protested their displacement from 20 of their corporate farms, which produces crops worth millions of naira on a daily basis. Speaking during a protest at the Lagos State House of Assembly, Chairman Afero Elujumo Mutaku Commercial Farmers Wale Oyekoya said they had a dream of building a better Nigeria, and for this, they brought back their life savings and foreign investments to Nigeria. He said those dreams were crushed when on the 11th of December 2023, in an open display of violence and utter carnage, they were violently invaded and brutally attacked by suspected members of the Nigerian military. Oyekoya said they got the land legitimately from Lagos State government, noting that they have been on the land allocated to them undisturbed for the past 10 years, peacefully and commercially farming their crops and raising their animals till the military invasion.
The Nigerian army destroy of our corporate farms, which produces billions of naira worth of crops to Nigerians on a daily basis. We are not hoe and shovel farmers. We utilize the latest in mechanized machinery and equipment imported from overseas and practice farming on a commercial scale, thereby contributing to a large percentage of crop production to the country and to Lagos State. When on the morning of 11th day of December 2023, in a brutal display of violence and utter carnage during the late season rains around 11:15 a.m., that day were violently invaded and brutally attacked by elements of Nigerian army. In these circumstances, we no longer see Lagos State or Nigeria as a safe investment destination, but more as the wild, wild West Africa that they have shown themselves to be. We want all our money back, and we want our land back, and we want justice. So we are appealing to our Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, to please come to our aid, because this is the second time we are coming here. We were here in January 9 for our voice to be heard. We have not heard anything from the House of Assembly, especially through the office of the Honorable Speaker. This is our second time that our business is really suffering. If you go there right now, the military men have taken over the place. They even call the place their barracks, because they will not allow any farmers to come into the premises.
We now tell you that the Bola Tinubu administration has been urged to turn the lives of Nigerians around for the better. The call came from residents of Jos, the capital city of Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, as the effects of the economic crisis continue to bite. Chizoba Yomwe was on the street of Jos to feel the pulse of a cross-section of the people and now completes the reports.
Life in Nigeria hasn't been such a beautiful one, but since the past 1 year, culminating into the administration of President Bola Tinubu, same life of Nigerians has not been the same. For many indigents and residents on the plateau, when the rich gets richer, the poor continues to wallow in their poverty. With this current hardship witnessed by many Nigerians in the various aspects of life, there are fears and worries how the masses cope with every new day.
Farmers are unable to go to their farms because of insecurity. But what baffles me most is the fact that even the attackers themselves must feed. So they need to think twice.
People barely eat. People hardly go to work. People hardly survive because a lot of things are happening. And as a result, a lot of things are coming up, like kidnapping, stealing, crisis, and the rest of them.
The issue of security have crumpled every of our activities. It have rendered our activities useless. Bordering to school, to farming, to health, whatever social activities, nothing is going well for us because of the insecurity.
Clueless and almost hopeless how things will change, if there will ever be a change for the better. Nigerians call on government for urgent actions that will positively impact the country.
We want the government to look into the issue of insecurity and address it. Once it is addressed, I think the issue of lack of food, economic hardship, and any other thing will be taken care of.
The government must come in, must provide leadership in this area, deliberately, so that there is harmony and so that our farmers can go back to the farmland.
There are a lot of things that are in the pipeline. Poultry, piggery, and farming that the government is trying to embark on in no distance time across the state.
While these words are believed to have been laid on the table of government, attention shifts to see how this change will take a turn to reverse the hardship currently faced by citizens. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyonwe.
Now, about 32 states in Nigeria have been earmarked as high-risk flood-prone areas This was as the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency released the 2024 annual flood outlook, where they called for effective measures to mitigate the expected effects of flooding on citizens. Amadin Uyi reports.
Flooding has in recent times had devastating effects in Nigeria. Experts say the 2022 floods comes to mind as the nation suffered heavy losses in billions of dollars.
Flooding has become a perennial incident in Nigeria, with attendant impacts such as loss of lives, destruction of properties, displacement and loss of livelihood, among others.
The total economic damage to residential and non-residential buildings, infrastructure, productive sector, and farmlands from the 2022 floods was estimated at $6.68 billion by the World Bank Global Rapid Post-Disaster Management Damage Estimation Assessment.
As stakeholders converge on Nigeria's capital, Abuja, for the 2024 annual flood outlook, they say 32 states, including almost 150 local government areas, have been earmarked to fall under high-risk flood-prone areas and experience flooding this year.
The level of floods in this category is expected to be high in terms of impact on the population, agriculture, livelihoods, livestock and infrastructure, and the environment. Part of 72 local governments across the country fall within the high flow risk areas in the months of April, May, and June, while part of 135 local government areas in the months of July, August, and September, and part of 44 local government areas in the months of October and November 2024 are within the high flood risk zones.
We must increase very strategically and responsibly water harvesting technologies so that rather than have flooding, let people have water stored for them to be able to do dry season farming or irrigation farming.
They are calling on state governments to prepare beforehand so as to be able to mitigate the effects on citizens. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Coming up on the news, over 100,000 displaced after Burundi floods. We will bring you details of this in a short while. Don't go away. Nice to know you're still there. The government of Burundi and the United Nations have launched an appeal for financial aid to cope with the devastating effects of months of relentless rainfall that has displaced nearly 100,000 people. East Africa has been experiencing torrential rains in recent weeks that have cost the lives of at least 58 people in Tanzania in the first half of April and 13 people in Kenya. Burundi, which the UN says is one of the 20 countries most vulnerable to climate change, has been pelted by almost non-stop rain since September, with its main city of Bujumbura ravaged by floods. They said between September and April 7, a total of 203,944 people were affected, while the number of internally displaced people increased by 25% to 96,000. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has paid a visit to camps for internally displaced persons in the northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo. During his 3-day visit, Volker would have a series of meetings with human rights defenders and civil society organizations, as well as with President Felix Tshisekedi and members of the government. Between 10 and 15 civilians were killed in the weekend attack in the Beni region in eastern DRC, in new attacks blamed on ADF rebels affiliated with Islamic State. Last Friday, it was reported that 14 civilians were killed in several places in the neighborhood, and a new attack targeted another on the night of Saturday to Sunday, leaving 2 more dead.
with a group of people who had been displaced as a result of horrible violence. Massacres were committed in their homes, and they have been here for the last 4 years. Their most fervent wish is to...
In the north of the continent, the United Nations Special Envoy for Libya has tendered his resignation, saying the world body could not successfully support the North African country's political transition as its leaders had put their own interests above finding a solution. Senegalese diplomat Abdullahi made this known while speaking with journalists. He said, under the circumstances, there is no way the UN can operate successfully.
Yes, I did tender my resignation to the Secretary General, and explained for these very reasons. And of course, it's up to the Secretary General to draw the conclusions therefrom. We have seen in recent months the development of parallel initiatives which have the objective, even if it is not declared, to disrupt the UN-led process. It's very sad, but to note, as I said, in Libya today, the bulk of the Libyan population want to get out of this mess. They came to me and asked for a formula which will go beyond those leaders who do not want to put an end to the crisis of the country.
Tunisians and relatives of migrants who have disappeared while attempting to cross the Mediterranean demonstrated outside the Italian embassy during the Italian PM's visit to Tunis. They are criticizing the management of the migration issue by Tunisia and Italy and calling for more humane solutions. Tunisia is a major transit point for thousands of migrants hoping to reach Europe every year, with Italy as a frontline for their arrivals. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni began her fourth visit to Tunisia in less than a year, focusing once again on the fight against illegal immigration and cooperation with its Maghreb country. Still ahead on the news. 65 killed as April rain doubles historical average in Pakistan. We'll bring you details in a short while. To stay with us. Bringing you stories from other continents, we tell you that at least 65 people have died in storm-related incidents, including lightning in Pakistan, with rain so far in April falling at nearly twice the historical average rate. Heavy downpours between Friday and Monday unleashed flash floods and caused houses to collapse, while lightning killed at least 28 people. The largest death toll was in northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where 32 people have died, including 15 children, and more than 1,300 homes have been damaged. Pakistan is increasingly vulnerable to unpredictable weather patterns, as well as often destructive monsoon rains that usually arrive in July.
امنګ رشتہداران دي دلته ناغوره وړي ده نور سامان د مخامخ لوخي تخکاری د کلوخي پاتې نور ارسي وړي دي تقریبا 1400 کورونه هغه متاثر شوي دي دغه کورونو چې کوم لایف سټاک چونکه د زیاتره د دیهات علاقو خلکو د زری زمکو سره د روزګار وابسته او د دې د لایف سټاک سره مال مویشي سره روزګار وابسته.
Straight to business now. The federal government has begun disbursing the 50,000 naira presidential conditional grant scheme to nano businesses nationwide. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Uzoka-Nite, stated that several beneficiaries have already received grants, with more to come on April 19, 2024. The scheme targets 1 million small businesses across Nigeria. And joining me live in our studios to talk more about this is Dr. Femi Egbeshola, President, Association of Small Businesses of Nigeria, ASBON. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us
Thank you
on the
for
news.
having me.
So the disbursement of 50,000 naira to selected nano businesses come at a time when businesses are confronted with various economic headwinds. This must be a sweet relief for the businesses. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, it's going to be some form of relief, particularly to those in the nano category of businesses, because some businesses sustain themselves with just as little as 10,000, 20,000 to survive. So for this category of business owners, it's going to be a lot of relief. And we do hope that the tranches will go beyond the intended 1 million businesses to give out more grants to more of these business owners. Because by statistics, these nano business owners forms the major part, or about 80% of the 40 million businesses we have in Nigeria here, meaning that 1 million may not really go a long way. So we want to encourage governments to look at how they can grow this funding to affect more lives and more businesses.
And some people will wish that they even see the 50,000 naira first before we begin to look at and higher amounts, I want to believe. So let's look at the programs now. When programs like this are announced, not many potential beneficiaries are interested because of the distrust between the people and the government. So are you convinced that this project will impact the people who actually need the grant? And what measures have been put in place to ensure that this happens?
Well, talking about impacting the targeted audience, that's the nano business owners, the very small micro business owners, is one thing that has to be debated. Debated in the sense that we really do not know the criteria that government is using to be able to decipher those who are in the nano category at the moment that are supposed to be the beneficiary of this fund. Before now, most often than not, we discover that those who are really not in business are the actual beneficiaries. We call them political business owners. Have always been the actual beneficiaries. And that's why some of us have been advocating that if there are funds like this or government programs like this, palliatives like this, it's always important to carry along the critical stakeholders in that sector so that there'll be more transparency, and we'll be able to also hold the project and the policy together, and eventually we'll be able to execute the policy such that it gets the intended benefits that it is expected at the end of the exercise. So for these, we really do not have inside information. We are receiving information as you are also receiving it on the news. And as at the moment, none of our members, we have over 40,000 members, none of our members has come to give testimony that they have received the fund yet. But according to the update from the federal government through the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, April 19, many more are expected to receive the fund. We'll be waiting for that date to come, and let's see if we are going to see some of our members coming up to say they have benefited. But when it comes to actually applying for this fund, a majority of our members applied for the fund and have done all that is expected of them to be able to become a potential beneficiary. So let's wait and see, and we'll be happy if at the end of the exercise, we can say, yes, real business owners at this time benefited from this palliative.
Well, it's quite interesting because the federal government already said that some people have already received these grants. So as you said, we get to wait and see. But then we are going to look at it holistically, looking at the real sector, the informal sector, these nano businesses, and what they're able to provide and contribute to the economy. What specific, aside grants, what other specific support do you think they should be given and accorded, either locally or from international organizations or other society groups and all that, that can help them improve on the quality of their deliverables and contribute to the economic growth of the country?
Yes, the first thing is to improve on the ease of doing business. Business must be done in a way that will be conducive for every player in the sector. At the moment, it's very difficult, particularly for those in the nano category, to do business and survive. In other climes, it takes about 5 to 10 years before some business exited from the business environment. But over here, in 6 months, you see businesses dying off, meaning that the environment is still not right enough. One of the things we will need government to fix if they want to sustain this nano category of business owners is the ability to help them to build their capacity. They need to build their capacity up to the point that they'll be able to do business the right way. And that's the only way they can begin to upscale from nano to micro, micro to small, small to medium, and medium to large. If you look at the history of business owners over time in Nigeria here, you hardly see nano businesses migrating to become small or medium-sized businesses. And it shows that there's a big gap that needs to be filled. Infrastructure is also one big thing that is affecting the nano category of business owners. One of the major key indices in this infrastructure area is power. Power is very, very critical to the survival of nano businesses because they do not have the fund to generate alternative power source on their own. So they rely critically on the power generated by government through PHCN. And when this is not available or it's not affordable, it becomes a big, big, big challenge to them. Taxes is another issue that has been mitigating against growth in this nano sector. And these taxes is not really coming from the federal or from the state, but majorly from the local government area. And this is one area that many have not been looking at to regulate those taxes and harmonize them such that it will not hinder the growth of the nano business owners. These are some of the critical areas that government needs to look at. And finally, it's important for government to work with critical stakeholders in that sector. We are the one that relates with these people the more. They trust us even more than government. And for government to be able to reach them, to be able to build their capacity, to be able to help them to upscale, they need to work along with critical stakeholders like business membership organizations, just as ours.
Okay, let me just quickly get your reaction to this, Dr. Egbeshola. You said that there's a huge gap between the capacity of small businesses and medium-scale businesses. So can 50,000 naira make a difference?
Well, to me, 50,000 will serve as what the name is, palliatives. It's not going to really make a lot of difference. Feeding one head alone in a month now may not be a 50,000 naira issue, not to talk of sustaining a business with this. So to us, this may not really be sustainable. We would have expected something more sustainable and more long-lasting that will really reflect on these businesses. But then 50,000 naira to some people, like I did started with, is still something that can give some form of cushion, but it is not, definitely not sustainable. So we'll look at government working out some other modalities, some other policies that will be more sustainable than giving handouts that may not last even 1 month.
Dr. Femi Egbeshola, thank you so much for coming to our studios to talk to us. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you once again for the opportunity.
And now that's all on the news at this hour. Don't forget to follow us on our social media handles. But then let's quickly look at the top major stories. Court restrains EFCC from arresting, detaining, prosecuting former Kogi governor. Over 100,000 displaced after Burundi floods as government appeals for aid. United Nations Special Envoy to Libya, Abdullahi, resigns. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on your screen and follow us at News Central TV. That's the handle. While also you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.